Canada is the largest country in the Western Hemisphere. Despite being a wealthy nation, it faces issues of poverty and inequality, with high cost of living, indigenous communities challenges, and a lack of affordable housing. All these contribute significantly to poverty, especially in urban areas, though income levels are higher. As of 2022, Vancouver has a poverty rate of 11.2%. Halifax has 10.5%, and Toronto has 10%, with the lowest being Québec at 4.8%, Saguenay at 5.3%, and Oshawa at 5.3%. Why does a wealthy country like Canada have poverty? Let us explore the blurred lines. Though social safety nets exist together with policies designed to address these concerns, there is still poverty. Canada has one of the largest and highly developed economies, but more than 1,462,795 people used food banks across Canada in 2022 alone. Its GDP in 2020 was $1.64 trillion, making it the 9th largest economy in the world. In 2023, Canada's GDP is expected to reach $2,178 billion, according to Trading Economics Global Macro Models and analyst expectations. International trade contributes 1/3 to the GDP, and its largest trading partners include the US, China, and the UK. The top 3 industries that help build this country include real estate, manufacturing, and mining. The average monthly income in Canada households is $4,413 per capita, which is lower compared with the United States. Yet prices for daily consumer goods are around 1.3% higher. The income tax payable in Canada on all income is very high compared to other OECD countries, and a married couple with 2 children and an average income pays 17.3% income tax. The total tax burden, including Social Security contributions but excluding employer contributions, is 21.9%. The concept of poverty is not as straightforward as most of us think, and there are multiple factors contributing to poverty. It goes beyond just the lack of income, as it ranges from no access to basic needs, social exclusion, no access to human development, inability to achieve a level of well-being, and capability, vulnerabilities to risks and shocks. These situations worsen poverty during natural disasters, health crises, or economic downturns. In 2021, the poverty rate in Canada was between 9 and 10%, and approximately 3 million Canadians were living in poverty. Children are amongst the highest victims of poverty, with 1 in 5 living in poverty. The indigenous peoples of Canada, more especially the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities, face higher poverty when compared to the general population. To live in a city is more costly, increasing the poverty rate in those areas. Canada has social safety nets that include programs such as employment insurance, EI, old age security, OAS, and the Canada Child Benefit, CCB, which play a role in mitigating poverty. What does this mean? Well, the employment insurance benefits essentially provide temporal income to those without work while they are job seeking or upskilling themselves. It also caters to people who leave work due to sickness and pregnancy. However, this program has a qualifying criteria. You can only get benefits if you have paid premiums for at least a year and meet entitlement conditions stipulated in the Digest of Entitlement Principles. Families with responsibilities of taking care of children under the age of 18 years receive a non-taxable amount each month from the government to help cover costs. This amount varies depending on the condition of a child, and it is slightly higher for children living with disabilities. Income inequality and the growing wage gap in Canada is an economic concern. According to Statistics Canada, the gap in the net worth between the poorest and richest increased by 1.1% points in the first quarter of 2023. Throughout the years, income distribution has become increasingly uneven, with the top earners getting more and poor people getting poorer. Factors contributing to this trend include technological advancements, globalization, labor market changes, and shifts in government policies. Unstable employment makes life significantly hard for individuals, families, and society. It comes with irregular income, inadequate benefits, and a lack of job security. All these lead to financial instability, making it challenging for individuals and families to plan for the future, save, or invest in education and skills development. Unstable employment also has detrimental effects on physical and mental health of workers because it contributes to higher stress levels, anxiety, and depression. It also limits access to essential benefits such as health insurance, retirement plans, and paid leave, increasing financial responsibilities during health crises or retirement. These affect vulnerable populations, including the youth, newcomers, and low-income individuals. It also contributes to widening social inequality and hinders the social mobility. Racism and discrimination are systemic issues that affect some groups in Canada, especially Indigenous people, racial and ethnic minorities, and other marginalized communities. As of June 2020, approximately 60% of Canadians express a level of support for the Black Lives Matter movement, and a third of the population, about 28%, report they have been victims of racism. This leads to unequal access to quality education, lower academic achievement, and a higher likelihood of dropout rates among marginalized groups, negatively impacting the self-esteem and aspirations of minorities. Systemic racism leads to hiring and promotion biases, wage gaps, and limited career advancement opportunities for racial and ethnic minorities. It contributes to higher unemployment rates and unstable work conditions for these groups, which leads to higher rates of chronic illness, inadequate treatment, and poorer overall health as marginalized communities experience inconsistent healthcare access and outcomes. Discrimination results in unequal access to housing options in neighborhoods, contributing to housing insecurity and segregation for some groups. All these contribute significantly to poverty. Indigenous communities have a long history of colonization, dispossession of land, and cultural suppression, and these continue to impact their access to resources today. They face barriers to quality education, including remote locations, underfunded schools, and culturally insensitive curricula. They often have worse health outcomes due to inadequate access to healthcare services, clean water, and nutritious food. They lack adequate housing and essential infrastructure, leading to overcrowding and poor living conditions. These communities have high underemployment rates, limited job opportunities, and a lack of economic development. According to Statistics Canada, 1 in 7 people living in Canada are poor. That's approximately 4.9 million people. The cost of poverty yearly are between $72 billion and $84 billion, with low-income households being more vulnerable to health issues than those with a living wage. Poverty is a main contributor to sickness as people live in inadequate housing, have poor nutrition, and have less access to preventative health care. Between 1980 and 2005, average earnings among poor Canadians fell by 20%, with the population increasing by 30%. In these 25 years, the annual national investment in housing decreased by 46%. The epidemic of unaffordable housing in Canada means 1 in every 5 households experiences serious housing affordability issues and spends over 50% of their low income on rent, putting them at risk of homelessness. The number of people who experienced homelessness in Toronto in 2021 was 7,347 and is currently around 10,000 for 2023. Approximately half of these people are on waiting list for affordable housing. More than 45% of these people live with disabilities. 21% are single mothers who raise their kids while living in poverty, and 7% are single fathers. Women working full-time earn only 72 cents for every dollar a man earns, and women who are single parents are twice as likely to seek help from other shelters compared to women in two-parent households. Indigenous peoples are colonized along with their land, and the majority experience homelessness in all urban areas. 1 in 2 status First Nations children and 1 in 5 racialized families live in poverty in Canada, as opposed to 1 in 20 non-racialized families, where racialized women living in poverty are almost twice as likely to work in manufacturing jobs than other women living in poverty. Education gives people the knowledge, skills, and opportunities to improve their economic prospects and well-being. It is a source of valuable skills and knowledge essential in the modern job market. With education, people can acquire the abilities needed for different careers and industries. It also opens doors to higher-paying jobs less likely to be affected by economic downturns. It positions people to find jobs even when the job market is competitive. It can be a source of encouragement for people to start their businesses and adapt to changes by solving problems. Education also enables individuals to move up the social and economic ladder, as children of parents with higher education levels are more likely to achieve higher education themselves. People also tend to make better informed health decisions when educated. Canada aims to reduce 50% of the poverty by 2030, and this could lead to Canada's lowest poverty rate in history. The country recognizes that poverty is continuous, and its three pillars of dignity, opportunity and inclusion, and resilience and security. Companies like Hatch are recognized as one of Canada's best diversity employers by Medicorp Canada Incorporated. This engineering firm has relationships with First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and Native Americans based on the values of honesty, respect, and transparency. The cost of housing in some parts of Canada, particularly in major cities like Vancouver and Toronto, has contributed to challenges in addressing poverty, as affordable housing becomes more difficult to access. They aim to engage early, openly, and honestly in a sustained manner with Indigenous peoples, to build long-term relationships that benefit Indigenous peoples and businesses, to promote opportunities within their organization that promote Indigenous peoples' engagement and participation, and to allow Indigenous peoples to maintain and strengthen their institutions, cultures, and traditions, and to develop themselves in keeping with their needs and aspirations. The stigma associated with poverty affects policy decisions. It leads to blaming individuals for being poor and assumes that people are lazy or lack ambition. This makes policy decisions less focused on addressing systemic issues and more on taking severe measures. It shapes public perception of poverty-related policies, making those in poverty receive less support. It also makes policymakers prioritize issues seen as more socially acceptable over poverty because stigma diverts attention and resources away from addressing the root causes of poverty. If this happens, groups designed to address poverty and provide assistance risk getting less funding for social programs and services. Stigma can stop people from asking for help and engaging in programs meant to help them ease poverty. This leads to a lack of participation in initiatives designed to support and disempower those in poverty, making it difficult for them to advocate for their rights and needs. If fewer people participate in programs designed for them, they risk having policies that do not effectively address their concerns. Policies that fix short-term things rather than address systemic factors contributing to poverty. Over time, advocacy efforts lead to cultural shifts and changes in public perception. This, in turn, enables long-term changes in policies and practices. Advocacy groups and individuals highlight poverty-related issues that do not receive mainstream coverage. Through campaigns, events, and storytelling, they shed light on the challenges faced by minorities. They also provide a platform for those living in poverty to share their stories and perspectives. This amplifies their voices and brings first-hand experiences to the forefront of discussions. Educating the general public about the complex dispelling myths and misinformation helps the public better understand the root causes and effects of poverty. It helps frame poverty as a systemic issue rather than a personal failing, shifting the conversation from blame to addressing structural inequalities and policy shortcomings. By raising awareness and building public support, advocacy efforts lead to policy changes as policymakers are more likely to take action. Advocacy groups can also collaborate with other organizations, experts, and stakeholders like Hatch to create a unified front against poverty. These collective efforts strengthen their impact and provides diverse perspectives alongside highlighting problems. And the promotion of evidence-based solutions and best practices to address poverty guides policy decisions toward effective strategies. It includes organizing rallies, letter-writing campaigns, and meetings with elected officials, advocacy groups, and individuals to pressure policymakers to prioritize poverty-related issues. Personal stories and first-hand accounts foster empathy among the public and policymakers, making them more likely to support poverty reduction initiatives. Organizations like Canada Without Poverty works hand-in-hand with the government and the United Nations to meet 4 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals before 2030. They are working on SDG number 1, No Poverty, 2, Zero Hunger, 10, Reduced Inequalities, and 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. CWP aims to decrease both visible and invisible poverty. Organizations like Dignity for All, Citizens for Justice, and Canada Without Poverty played a critical role in designing the legislation of Canada's first National Poverty Reduction Strategy and the National Housing Strategy, and pressuring the government to honor the rights of people experiencing poverty. Canada's overall poverty rate was estimated at 7.4% in 2021, up from 6.4% in 2020, and down from 14.5% in 2015. The poverty rate for children was 6.4% in 2021, up from 4.7% in 2020. The poverty rate for seniors was 5.6% in 2021, up from 3.1% in 2020. When compared with 2015, approximately 11,000 fewer seniors were living in poverty in 2021. Were you aware such exists in Canada? What actions do you think can better these statistics? Comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Like and share this video, and check out this next video.